Awesome. So thanks for coming. Thanks for joining this podcast. It's great. And obviously we've only met a couple of times now, haven't we?
Yeah.
We were referred to by a mutual friend. And so it's awesome to meet you and get chatting to you again, because your experience, your career is a really good one, interesting, diverse, and with some good challenges in it that you've obviously overcome and are thriving. So I'm really excited to, well, introduce you to hopefully a lovely big audience that will be listening. So welcome, Liz. And so introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll get stuck in.
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name is Liz Willetts. People call me Liz, and I run the Investing in Women job board, which focuses on helping people find flexible and part-time positions. I've got over 15 years of recruitment experience. We can talk a little bit more about my career history. I'm sure we will in the podcast, but yeah, I've got 15 years recruitment experience. Worked for a Big Four consulting firm, but started my career in a recruitment agency, and I'm hugely passionate about helping particularly women find flexible work that they can fit around their family and other commitments.
Yeah, awesome. And so your latest venture has been born from your own personal experiences and having to find work that works for you, haven't you? So
absolutely, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I was made redundant at the end of my second maternity leave in the height of the pandemic, so just over 18 months ago now. And I couldn't find another part-time job. So every time I was approached by a recruiter about a position and I asked if they would consider part-time, they said no straight away or ghosted me. And I just found it a hugely frustrating experience. I remember going onto the Reed website and typing recruiter, that's what I did, into their search, and there was like 900 odd jobs and less than 30 were part-time. So I knew there was a huge problem. I mean, and I knew that from my own experience as a recruiter, because I've recruited, like I said, I've been in recruitment for nearly 15 years at that point, and I had never recruited anybody into a part-time job.
Wow.
They had been full-time. So I knew that there was a problem, and I knew I would struggle. And I personally believe that is a huge contributory factor to the gender pay gap. I wrote a LinkedIn post about it last week about my friend. She had a small business that she'd been forced really to set up because she couldn't get flexible and part-time work in her position when she'd had a baby. She set up a small business. It had to close during the pandemic, and then she had 3 small children to homeschool. And then when she came to look for another part-time job that would help her do the school run, she couldn't find anything, and the only position she could find that would allow her to do school run was just above minimum wage, paying £10 an hour. And she felt forced to take it because she knew that that was the only way she could make school pickup. So I think there's a huge problem. I do think that is a contributory factor to the gender pay gap, because a lot of people do want flexible working and part-time. I don't think we should be punished for it with low skilled and low paid work.
No, absolutely not. I mean, how many thousands of women out there who want to have families, have so much experience and these skills and knowledge that organizations are now losing out on, missing out on, because they won't switch to a flexible working or part-time way of working for these people. Do you think that post-pandemic that's starting to change at all? The way that people have learned to do more flexible working and working from home?
Yeah, I think they have. So obviously there is a huge demand. There's a huge demand for flexible working now, which is great. And it's not just women, which I think is brilliant, because it's not just a women thing or a mum thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, there is a huge demand for flexible working. And, you know, anecdotally speaking to other recruiters, if employers can't offer it, they're not receiving applications. And obviously there is a lot more remote working, a lot more working from home jobs, and there are a lot of hybrid roles as well. So yeah, I think that is definitely a huge plus, massively. But not all jobs are still advertising the flexible working that they can offer. So I think there was a recent study by TimeWise that showed 75% of jobs made no mention of flexible working. And a lot of people I speak to in my audience, in my market, will only apply for jobs if they can see that there is flexible working on offer and the type of flexible working on offer. And actually, as a job board that specialises in flexible working, if a recruiter or an employer posts a job and they don't mention flexible working, obviously I go back and say, can you offer flexible working? 9 times out of 10, actually, they can. For some reason, haven't put it in the job advert. So yeah, I mean, there's a lesson here. If you see a job you like and you think it looks brilliant, even if it doesn't mention flexible working, go for it, because they may be able to offer it. But I think in a way it's just sometimes a bit lazy recruitment. They don't write it in, they forget to write it in. If it's coming from an agency, there's an automatic assumption that it will be full-time. So yeah, I think there is a long way to go in terms of employers really embracing flexible working, promoting it, shouting about it, and maybe not just offering it if they get asked about it.
Yeah, I love that demand is starting to force the hand of organizations to think about this differently.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fine, I guess, balance as well, though, because in reality, there are a lot of jobs that can't be part-time or flexible out there. And so being realistic about what are the needs of that the job and that business. Yeah. So within a business, there will undoubtedly be many roles that can be flexible, but having also come from a firm that has multiple different roles, there are just some that to try and make them work flexibly is very difficult because of, I know, where you need to be and the demands of clients and things like that. So I can see where there are challenges, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should have to settle for something that you're far too skilled and have far too much experience for. Just because that's that seems to be what's all on offer for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do agree that there are some jobs that obviously can't be done part-time, but I would argue that there are a lot that can, and it's just a question of thinking creatively about how they can be done flexibly. Can they be done as a job share? Can people share that role? Can people share those responsibilities? And therefore it's still a full-time role, but is they being able to offer the flexible working that people want and need. And obviously there's a lot more companies as well which is promising going down to 4-day weeks. You hear about them, every week, and they're still being able to offer full-time pay, but they've recognized the benefits to them, how much more productive and focused and efficient the workforce is doing those 4 days.
Yeah, I just think it's really great that organizations, like I say, are just starting to think a bit more creatively about how they offer roles and are set up. So that's really cool. So tell me a little bit more about your transition from working in a Big Four professional services to being made redundant and thinking, what do I do next? What's out there isn't for me. So you went through obviously some sort of decision making or thinking process that made you think, I'm gonna do this for myself. Talk to me a bit more about that.
I think a lot of it was actually my friend's experience as well as mine. So I'll be honest, I couldn't really find another part-time role. It was the height of the pandemic, so it wasn't as good a market as it is maybe now for candidates. And I knew that if I didn't want to settle for a role, to be honest, I had really expensive childcare. I had to pay out. So a job had to pay over a certain amount to make that worthwhile. And I didn't want to settle, and I thought it was something in me that I thought, this is wrong. I've got an opportunity if I can stick my head out and say this is wrong. I couldn't see many other job boards or services. I know there are a few more, but I think my perspective, actually coming from a recruitment background as well, I understand how it works within the client side. I understand what makes a good candidate. And I don't think that the market has been particularly well served, the part-time market. And I wanted to make a difference. So more of a difference than I could have done working for one organisation.
Yeah, but it's really awesome how you looked at what your skills and experience are and what there is a need for out there, and how you can start creating some change. And so when you made this decision then to start something up for yourself, like, what were your sort of biggest challenges, and how did you get started?
It was hard. I mean, I've no tech background, so starting a job board, I mean, to be honest, it sounds crazy really, because I still can hardly, well, actually, no, I say that. I've actually got a lot better, but at the time I could hardly work Outlook. I wasn't very good at Excel. So at the begin with, and I hadn't got, I'm not fun, you know, I'm self-funded. I bootstrapped, whatever you call it. So I had to be really scrappy, and I learned how to build a basic WordPress site. But you know, I've enjoyed it so much. I've learned so much about how marketing, sales, copywriting, all the different things that go into a business. Most of it is being consistent. But yeah, I mean, it was a huge learning curve, and you know, felt a bit sick spending my redundancy money, not knowing if I would make that money back or not.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a huge leap of faith, isn't it? And you don't know if it's going to work out or not. I think that's the biggest challenge, teaching myself and the leap of faith.
Yeah, I think that's a big one for most people that are, particularly people who are looking for a career change, looking to change their job, do something quite different, escape the corporate world. It's that real fear of, obviously you got made redundant, so that wasn't, you know, a decision of I'm going to lose my salary, what can I do? Because you just like, okay, wait, but it was more, where am I going to invest my redundancy money? For me, it's like, okay, I've managed to save up enough to take this leap of faith. And
do you know what? I'm lucky I was made redundant, because I wouldn't have done it. I don't think I would have had the guts to leave a job and leave a steady income to do this. So I was really lucky that I was given actually this opportunity to do it. I mean, the hardest thing as well is obviously not getting paid. I worked for months and months and months and months and didn't get paid. Yeah. And everything was going out. I could just see the bank balance like going down and down and down. And then even now I'm still on just minimum wage. It's very hard, especially bootstrapping. I wouldn't say start a business to get rich. There has to be, I think, another driver for you to want to start a business.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, isn't it? It's understanding your why, what's your motivation, what's going to keep you doing this, knowing, like you say, that for the first possibly like year, you might not actually make any money, because it's all about you, for example, investing in yourself, learning so many new skills. Yeah, like you say, this is another really key thing, I think, for people to wrap their heads around. Mums trying to get back into the workplace, for example, or, you know, starting your own business, there's such a huge learning curve. You've really got to have that growth mindset to realize that I can get better at all of this and I can make this happen. I've just got to learn stuff and be like totally on board with this is my career now. Learning and self-motivating and things like that. And I love that you said, I was really lucky I got made redundant. And even though you're sitting here telling me, you know, you spend most of your redundancy money and you're still on minimum wage, but you still refer to the whole experience as lucky.
Yeah, I do. Well, I do, because I wouldn't have done it without it. And I do honestly think it was the best thing that happened to me. So yeah,
and that's brilliant.
I'm delighted really it happened, because I wouldn't, like I said, have had the guts to do it. My door's just gone. Can we pause it and then?
Yeah, we can pause it.
Right, I feel awful about this. Yeah.
So this is definitely not something to apologize for, but what it's going to highlight is that now I have to really get good at my editing skills on these podcasts. No, that's totally fine. This is what it's all about. We were just saying, weren't we? Learning new skills. So it's like, oh, right, I've really got to up the game now and actually
20 minutes in.
learn to edit. Yeah. So now, what were we talking about? Learning.
You're saying about me being lucky that I was made redundant.
Being lucky. Yeah, exactly. And I just think that's just such an awesome just result.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's like if you got divorced and then you felt like you met your dream partner.
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of need the change, and you need the way the change forced on you in some circumstances, in some instances, especially if you're leaving a safety net. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's really hard. I mean, I I spent a long time sort of trying to think, what's my next step? How am I going to escape, I guess, the corporate world, knowing I didn't want to be there, but
well, you made
what's the right
redundant.
next move?
You leave.
No, I chose to leave.
That
So I
is
left.
incredibly brave. But that actually shows it was quite a really conscious decision. And
it was definitely very conscious, and one I'd been thinking about for a long time. One that was made slightly easier for me because I met an amazing man partner just before lockdown, and so supportive. And again, it's that when you're wanting to leave, you need to make a plan. You need to have an action plan. How am I going to do this to make sure that you're buffered? And he's provided a financial buffer for me. So even though I had a lot of savings, I kind of knew that I had him in the background if I needed to. I wasn't going to suddenly lose my flat or anything like that. So, so that took that level of stress out of it. But what's been really interesting, actually, I'm completely switching this conversation from you to me now, but I'll come back to you.
It's good to hear other people's stories.
Yeah, I think that, so Will and I have talked about this a few times, that because I left end of June last year. In that time between then and now, I haven't put 100% into starting my new business. I've kind of dabbled a bit here and dabbled a bit there, had some coaching clients, really trying to explore, okay, what's my niche? Who do I want to talk to? And who do I want to help? Which is, brilliant that I'm sort of getting to that space now of really honing in. But would I have been quite so relaxed about it for that length of time? I mean, we've done a lot of moving house. I've actually invested more of my time in, getting to know his kids better and working on our relationship and moving house and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if I hadn't met him, I think I would have still made the jump, but my savings would have had a finite time because my rent would have been absorbing a lot of them. So I think I would have gone a lot harder and faster into the business development, but then I wouldn't have had all the family stuff distracting me to invest my time in. So it's a bit like if I hadn't met Will, I probably would have made the leap, and maybe my business would be thriving, flourishing a bit more than it is. But at the same time, I've now got a thriving, flourishing family side of life that I wasn't expecting, and a massive renovation project that we weren't expecting. But the business hasn't quite taken off as much as I'd like to have done.
I think that's just really true, because you're a whole person. You know how some people say you have to some people, you've got to separate work and home, your professional self isn't your personal self. I really don't agree with that. I think everything has to actually be in balance for you to thrive as a person and professionally. And I mean, so previously I suffered from infertility, and I ended up going through IVF and had miscarriages and stuff in that process. And I know I was not a brilliant employee. I'll hold my hands up during that 4 and a bit years, because I had so much else going on in my personal life. And it's only since actually having my children, I feel more confident again. I feel like myself again. I feel happier again. And so because I feel that's more in balance and in check, and I invested that time in getting that to a point where I was happy, now I can sort of use actually all the energy and happiness that I've got from my personal life to springboard a business. So I think they have to feed off each other. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's 100% true what you're saying. We have so many things about us that make us a whole person, don't we? And it's always very, I think, obvious when one of these things is really depleted or not right. For me, a lot of my sort of 30s, in my 30s, was around career. Just knew I was in the wrong space. I was feeling so unfulfilled and undervalued, and I wasn't doing a job that I felt passionate about in a organization that I felt passionate about. And it just impacted me so much. The experience I had in my last organization, how they treated me and how I felt about it, just crushed me. And so actually a lot of the last sort of 8 months has been about rebuilding myself and rediscovering myself and redeveloping this self-efficacy and confidence. So like you say, investing in yourself, because you need to get yourself a bit more whole and in that space before you can start taking
I think it's
next
a lot of it
steps.
is mindset. You know, people say it's about mindset.
Mm,
Everything's about mindset, and I really do agree
yeah,
with that. And that is how I think you've got to get in the right mindset. But if you're something so rubbish at home, or not it has to be necessarily really rubbish, but something's not working at home, it's very hard then to just suddenly just be a different person at 9 o'clock in the morning and
no.
forget. We're not computers. There is
No, and it's true. And people that can do that, I don't know, are they deluding themselves maybe, or what are they holding back? I'm very I love authenticity. People that you meet in work context or personal context, I've got to feel that authenticity from them. Otherwise, for me, it's uncomfortable.
yeah.
So like I say, being able to, I always found one of the sort of statements that gets used is bring your whole self to work. And I used to find that really uncomfortable.
I think it depends what's going on. I know that I would have really struggled with that when I was going through infertility. I didn't really tell many people. I was worried about being judged. I mean, it's a big thing, isn't it? You're worried about like maternity pregnancy discrimination. That is the whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
And I was worried, just people saying, oh, it happened, my friend did this, and then they got pregnant, and which isn't very helpful when you've been like suffering from infertility or whatever, any sort of illness for a few years. So I did find that quite hard, and actually I kept that very much back and hidden. And I guess, I feel more comfortable now bringing my health self to work because I'm happier.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I've got something to hide, but felt very, and I shouldn't feel ashamed about it at all. And if anyone's listening to this and is going through infertility, that was a silly feeling that I had. But I felt very ashamed about it for some strange reason at the time. Worried about
I think that's also down to the psychological safety environment that's created for you in the workplace. So if you were feeling like you couldn't talk about those sorts of things, then that's, to me, not saying that you holding it back was a bad thing. It was saying that you didn't feel safe sharing that with people at work. So your employer didn't create that safe space for you, or your manager didn't create that safe space for you, that you could have that conversation and feel that you could get that support at work. So I think that's really important. I know a lot of organizations are becoming a lot better at mental health and how they tackle it and creating that psychological safety, but there's a long way to go before we're there. But I think for me, if I was ever to look for an employer again, and I think for anyone seeking employment, is to really, particularly women, look at what initiatives they do to support women in the workplace, mental health, flexible working, all of those sorts of things that are becoming a lot more talked about, particularly by women, menopause and things like that. I mean, that's a huge one in the workplace now.
And
recognizing it.
I've written a post. The first time I wanted flexible working wasn't because I had kids, it was because I was trying to have kids. I knew I had all these IVF appointments to juggle. And actually I was very fortunate in that I did have a brilliant manager when I went through IVF that was hugely flexible. I mean, I don't think that was necessarily the policy of the company, but as an individual he was brilliant and flexible. And I think that's often where it comes. A lot of flexible working requests is often down to individual managers and how supportive they are of flexible working. I think actually we've still got a long way to go, and that companies need to be a lot more transparent and have a lot more company-wide policies, so that whatever type of manager you approach, you're going to get offered that support.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Having that consistency across the board. Yeah. So you work obviously in this space. You know a lot about getting women into work, and what do you find are still the biggest challenges that, you know, your network of women are facing?
I think the biggest challenge is, I mean, the flexible working piece. I get a lot of women messaging me saying, I'm coming up to the end of my maternity leave and my flexible working request has been rejected. They need me to go in 5 days a week. The office is an hour away. I'm not going to make nursery pick up. Don't necessarily want to have all that time away outside the home every week. Can you help? What can I do? So I get a lot of that, a lot around flexible working. And I also actually get a lot from women, the confidence, which I'm sure you've heard as well. You know, I've been out of work for so many years, or so, however long. I'm worried I've lost my skills and experience. What employer, you know, I'm probably exaggerating. You know, I don't know what employer would want me. I don't know what I'm good, what sort of jobs I'm suitable for anymore.
Yeah.
So it's sort of two-pronged thing. It's feeling their employers aren't flexible. Also get a lot that they are getting overlooked. Get messages from people that have been part-time. It's not actually part-time, they're still working really long hours, or that they feel like they're getting leapfrogged ahead of by people that are maybe working full-time. And confidence piece, having the confidence in themselves and their skills.
Yeah, there's just so many things there.
It is, and it's obviously different for different people, but
it's recognizing where you as an individual can take control of a situation, arming yourself with some knowledge to be able to have conversations with employers or potential employers, where you can seek some upskilling if you want to go into a particular type of work. And where you've talked about mindset, that's come up a few times as well. Mindset, growth mindset, and developing confidence. So for me, when I throughout my career at PwC, but also when I left PwC, I invested in coaching because I knew that my mindset was in completely damaged place. There was absolutely no way I had the confidence and self-efficacy to put myself out there as a professional coach and have that confidence in myself to say, I can help you. So no matter how passionate I was about it, I had to believe it myself. You know, all the feedback in the world was not actually changing how I felt, putting myself out there. So having a coach to walk you through and rebuild yourself, I think, is a really good investment as well. So there's just lots of different ways that you can empower yourself, isn't there, to start making this change and recognizing what your next steps are.
I agree. And I think it's also, a lot of it is recognizing all the skills you've gained if you've been out of work, out of paid work, I should say, because you know we never stop working, do we?
No.
But you know, there's, you know, if you've been to baby groups or toddler groups, you've networked, you've made friends, you've probably worked a room, you developed patience. My patience became so much better after having children, a lot more adaptable, resilient, resourceful, really good at project management, because you have to like try and plan a day, don't you? And these are really good skills that you can then take back. The workplace, an employer would be lucky to have you.
I love every single one of those examples that you can take from day to day. This is what I've been doing. You might not call it work, but it's, you know, it's unpaid work.
Like with you renovating your house, that's a huge project, and the skills you've learned doing that would be so transferable back into a job.
It would be. I've mainly developed a bit more muscle from it. A bit more patience and tenacity. Having my partner project leading it, that's a challenge because it's all up there and he knows exactly what he's doing, so just like work for me. But no, I love it. I love it. Project managing your day and resourcefulness. I bet that one's a huge one for mums, you know, trying to.
I remember going out, this is like, and my daughter She was 8 months old, and we got her out of the car seat. We were taking her to a soft play, which was daft to take an 8-month-old to a soft play. But you know, when you've got a first one, you kind of want to take them to places, and we got her out of the car seat, and she pooed everywhere, you know. And then I think normally when it was just me, I was really good at packing the car, and because there was me and my husband, it was a Saturday. And I think we'd both assumed each other had packed the changing bag. And there was like no changing bag.
Oh, no.
We were in the parked up in the shopping mall. Oh my God, we got like and so yeah. Things like that, you cope, don't you? And that's something quite resourceful.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Developing that resilience to, okay, it's happened. What can we do? And actually having that calm approach to things like that, challenges, it's an amazing skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing transferable skill.
Yeah, less flappable at work then.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, nothing's ever going to be as bad as my kid pooing in the back seat in the middle of a supermarket.
Yeah, exactly.
So what sort of parting advice might you give to women looking to change careers or get back into the workforce if they've, you know, they're mums that are trying to look for new work?
You've definitely got more skills and experience than you think, 100%, and they are so transferable back into the workplace. It's just about believing in yourself a little bit more. Like you said, about upskilling yourself, whether that's through coaching, courses, or reading books, listening to podcasts. There's a whole range of ways you can sort of upskill and empower yourself, and help just to build your confidence. But don't let employers or recruiters try and put you down, because you really do have so many brilliant skills. And you know what, if you come across a bad recruiter, you know, there's bad people in all professions, but if you come across someone that doesn't make you feel good, then move on, because there's plenty more fish in the sea, and there are so many brilliant employers out there that do want to hire you and recognize the skills you've got. And
the alternative is do it yourself.
Yeah,
like you've done.
Set up a business. Actually, it's more affordable than you think. You can do it on the side, you can do it on an evening, do it on a weekend. It's really it's actually not that expensive to set up a website. You can do it pretty cheap on WordPress, and there's some brilliant templates out there that make it actually super easy. And yeah, it's not as expensive as you think, and something that so many more women, we need more women own businesses.
Yeah, amazing. We need just so many more women doing everything, really, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Liz, thank you so much. It's really good to see you again, and thank you for all your insights and sharing your experience and stories with us. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for listening.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.